When you feel like giving up, that's the very moment when God is whispering, do not quit now, because I am not done with you yet. My friend, listen carefully. God never abandons a heart that still beats with faith. You may feel tired, invisible, or forgotten, but heaven is watching the silent fight inside you. God knows the tears you cried when no one was there. God knows the thoughts that trembled in your mind when you tried to stay strong but felt your strength fading, and yet you are still here. That alone is a sign that God is not finished writing your story. Every breath you take is proof that God has not given up on you. When life pushes you to your knees, that is not your defeat, it's your positional power. Because from your knees, you can look up to the one who holds everything together. You see, when you reach the end of yourself, you reach the beginning of God's power. When your plans fall apart, His plans start to unfold. God never wastes pain. God never allows a storm without a purpose. If you could see what He sees, you would not complain about what you're going through. You would prepare for what is coming next. You may think you've lost too much, failed too many times, or waited too long. But God specializes in turning impossible seasons into divine turning points. The moment you think it's over, that's when He begins. God does not operate on your clock. He operates on purpose. What you call delay, He calls development. What you call rejection, He calls redirection. What you call failure, He calls preparation. God never moves too early, and He never arrives too late. He moves at the exact moment when your heart is ready to see His hand clearly. So don't give up. Don't give up when people misunderstand you. Don't give up when doors close. Don't give up when your heart breaks. Because the same God who gave you the dream will give you the strength to see through. You were not born to quit. You were chosen to overcome. There is a strength inside you that has not yet been revealed, and God is using your current struggle to uncover it. Every challenge, every disappointment, every lonely night, it is shaping your spirit to become stronger than the storm you are facing. Sometimes God allows you to walk through silence so you can hear His voice more clearly. When people leave, when friends stop calling, when the noise fades, that's when God begins to whisper to your heart. He says, I am still here. The world may forget you, but God never does. You are engraved in His plan. You are not an accident of existence. You are a masterpiece in progress. The process may be painful, but the outcome will be glorious. Don't despise where you are, because this is the very ground where God is training you for your destiny. You may ask, why does it hurt so much? Why is this path so hard? Because greatness is never born in comfort. Diamonds are not formed in peace. They are formed under pressure. The fire you feel is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to refine you. God uses fire not to burn His chosen ones, but to purify their faith. He is burning away fear, doubt, pride, and everything that cannot go with you to the next level. You are not being punished. You are being prepared. God is transforming your wounds into wisdom, your pain into power, and your setbacks into strength. Every time you say, I can't do this anymore, heaven whispers back, you can, because I am with you. You are not walking alone through this valley. God walks beside you in silence. And sometimes He carries you when you cannot take another step. Don't measure your progress by how far you've gone. Measure it by the fact that you never stopped moving. Even when you crawl, God sees it as faith. Even when you only whisper prayers with the tears, God calls it courage. Even when you fall, God calls it growth. There are moments when God hides the result so that you will learn to trust the process. If you saw everything now, you would not need the faith. So He covers the future with a mystery, not to torment you, but to train you. God wants your trust more than your understanding. He wants your heart more than your answers. Sometimes the question you keep asking, why, is the very question that's blocking your peace. Because God does not always explain Himself, but He always reveals Himself in the end. You may not realize it yet, but you are walking through a sacred process. Every closed door, every waiting season, every unanswered prayer, it is forming something holy inside you. God is not ignoring you. He's investing in you. When you feel delay, remember this. God delays because He's designing, He's aligning the right people, the right timing, the right opportunities. While you worry about what you can see, God is working in the realm you cannot. He is positioning the pieces of your destiny into perfect order. Don't mistake silence for absence. Don't mistake stillness for inactivity. When God seems quiet, that's when He's doing His deepest work. Think of a seed buried in the soil. It's hidden, it's dark, it's silent. But in that hidden place, life is being formed. Roots are growing before fruit appears. In the same way, God hides you before He elevates you. He roots you before He reveals you. He matures your spirit before He magnifies your success. The waiting is not the punishment, it's protection. God hides His treasures until the time is right. The world will tell you to give up if things don't happen fast. But God's pace is not the world's pace. God values foundation more than speed. A skyscraper takes years of unseen construction beneath the ground before it rises into the sky. Likewise, your unseen seasons are not wasted. They are the very structure that will sustain your future. If God is taking His time, it's because He is building something that will last. So stay patient, stay faithful, stay anchored. Because when God moves, He will move suddenly, and every delay will make sense. Don't envy others who seem to rise faster. You don't know the cost of their path, and they don't know the purpose of yours. God is not comparing stories. He is crafting destinies. The blessings meant for you will not miss you, and the doors meant for you will not open for someone else. When it's your time, no one can block what God has ordained. So don't compete, don't complain. Just trust that God's timeline is perfect, even if it doesn't align with your expectations. Sometimes the reason God hasn't answered yet is because He's protecting you from what you cannot handle right now. The delay is mercy in disguise. If you receive everything you ask for too soon, it might crush you. God's no is not rejection, it's redirection. His delay is not denial, it's development. When you mature in patience, peace, and perseverance, then you'll see why the wait was necessary. There is a reason storms come before the sunrise. Because the night teaches you to value the light. God uses darkness to reveal what can only be seen in faith. When you can't see the way forward, that's when He invites you to walk by trust, not sight. Faith is not pretending everything is fine. Faith is standing firm even when nothing looks fine. Faith is not denying the pain. It's choosing to believe that pain has purpose. Faith says, I may not understand, but I will not give up because I know God is still in control. You see, surrendering to God is not weakness, it's strength in its purest form. When you stop trying to force everything and simply say, God, I trust you, something powerful shifts in the unseen realm, because the trust opens the door to divine movement. God cannot feel hands that are clenched with fear, but He can bless hands that are open in faith. So release what you cannot control and let God do what only He can do. Your life is not over because things went wrong. God can rewrite your story in one moment. One divine instruction, one unexpected opportunity, one act of obedience, that's all it takes for your entire situation to turn around. God has a way of using the most painful chapters as the foundation of your greatest testimony. What you thought disqualified you is the very thing God will use to qualify you. The rejection you faced will become the red carpet that leads you into your destiny. Maybe you prayed and cried and still see no change. Don't stop. Every prayer leaves a mark in the spiritual realm. Every tear you shed has been counted by God. He is not ignoring your cries. He is gathering them, and when the appointed time comes, they will return as answered blessings. God is not deaf to your pain. He's teaching you endurance through it. You may feel weak, but weakness is not failure. It's the place where God's strength shines brightest. When you admit you cannot do it alone, that's when His power begins to flow. God's grace is not given to the perfect. It's given to the persistent. You don't need to have it all together. You just need to keep believing that He is still working. Don't give up on your purpose because of one difficult season. Flowers don't bloom in winter, but that doesn't mean the roots are dead. Your purpose is still alive, even if it's unseen. Seasons change, and when your spring comes, everything will blossom again. But if you quit during the winter, you'll never see the harvest God prepared for you. So stay planted, stay rooted, stay faithful through the cold, because warmth is coming. Every great destiny passes through the wilderness. Before God brings you into abundance, He will test you in scarcity. Before He gives you influence, He will test your humility. Before He gives you success, He will test your patience. These tests are not punishment, they are qualifications. If you can trust God in the drought, you can be trusted with the rain. God never forgets your faithfulness. The world may not notice your efforts, but heaven records every act of faith, every kind word, every quiet prayer. Nothing you do in faith is ever wasted. When the reward comes, it will come pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You may have to wait, but when God rewards you, He will do it publicly for all to see what He saw privately. Don't give up because you feel small. Remember that the smallest seed can grow into the tallest tree. Great things always start small. God loves to take the overlooked and make them extraordinary. If you feel forgotten, that's a sign you're being prepared for something that requires isolation. The hidden season is holy. It's where God reveals Himself to you personally. There will come a time when everything you endured will make sense. You'll look back and realize that every closed door protected you. Every disappointment guided you. Every delay prepared you. And every tear strengthened you. You'll see that what you thought was breaking you was actually building you. You'll see that what you lost gave space for what was meant to come. God never wastes anything. Not your pain, not your waiting, not your failures. Everything is a thread in the fabric of your destiny. When you walk through a season where everything feels dark and uncertain, that is often the very place where God is working most powerfully behind the scenes. You may not feel His hand, you may not hear His voice, but that does not mean He is absent. It means He is operating in silence, constructing something sacred that your eyes are not yet ready to see. God hides His greatest miracles in what looks like ordinary days. He conceals divine breakthroughs within your pain, your routine, your struggle. Do not despise the small, silent days, for those are the days that prepare you to carry great glory. God is telling you, stay steady when nothing makes sense, because the unseen world is moving in your favor. When God calls you to endure, it is because He is strengthening the inner walls of your faith. The outer world may collapse, but your inner spirit, held by God, becomes unshakable. People often think strength is measured by how loud, visible, or powerful one appears. But God measures strength in silence, in obedience, in consistency. True strength is when you remain faithful even when you don't see any reward. It is when you continue to do what's right even when the world applauds what's wrong. That's when heaven takes notice. God's eyes are upon those who still believe even when it hurts to believe. There are moments when God allows you to face battles that feel far too heavy. You look at yourself and think, why me? Why now? Why this pain? But you must understand that God does not allow weight without purpose. The weight is what builds your spiritual muscle. Without the challenge, you would remain ordinary. God places you in deep waters, not to drown you, but to teach you how to swim in faith. Every difficulty carries divine intention. You might be asking God to remove the storm, but God might be saying, learn to walk on it. You are capable of far more than you realize because you carry the strength of the one who created you. Sometimes God will allow things to fall apart, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to rebuild you on a firmer foundation. If the structure of your life was built on fear, on pride, on human validation, God will let it crumble so that He can replace it with faith, humility, and divine purpose. You cannot carry divine blessings on a foundation that is weak. So when life feels like it's collapsing, understand this: God is doing renovation. He is tearing down walls that no longer serve your future. The demolition you feel is not destruction. It is the preparation for a greater structure. The truth is, God will never let you stay comfortable in places that are beneath your destiny. The very discomfort that makes you want to quit is often the tool God used to push you forward. Pain can become a prophet. It speaks to you, telling you that where you are is no longer enough for where you are meant to be. If you feel a holy restlessness inside you, don't suppress it. God is awakening something new. He stirs your spirit before He shifts your surroundings. The ache you feel is the signal of transformation. And when you find yourself waiting for breakthrough, waiting for healing, waiting for clarity, remember that waiting is not wasted when it is surrendered to God. Waiting is a divine classroom where patience, wisdom, and discernment are taught. You cannot rush what God is growing. Just as a farmer does not dig up the seed every morning to check if it's growing, you must trust that God is at work even when you cannot see any progress. Faith grows in hidden soil. God's timing is the soil in which miracles take root. So wait without panic. Wait with quiet confidence, knowing that God's plans are always worth the delay. Sometimes the reason God delays your progress is because He is protecting you from success that would destroy you. You may think you are ready, but God sees the unseen, the motives, the weaknesses, the traps. His love is so deep that He will withhold what you want to give you what you need. The closed doors are divine shields. The unanswered prayers are acts of mercy. One day, you will look back and thank God that He didn't give you what you thought you needed, because what He had planned was infinitely greater. There are also times when God asks you to walk alone, not because He wants you lonely, but because He wants you to learn that His presence is enough. People may leave, friends may fade, but when you walk alone with God, you discover a companionship that no human can replace. Solitude is not abandonment, it is alignment. It's the place where you stop depending on the world to validate your worth. It's where you learn that your identity is not in approval, but in purpose. When you can walk with peace, even in isolation, that's when you have entered the deepest level of faith, trusting that God is your company, your guide, your source of strength. When you feel weary, when your heart aches with exhaustion, speak to your soul, I will not give up because God is still with me. Remember, weariness is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you've been fighting for something that matters. God sees the quiet warriors, those who choose love over bitterness, faith over fear, peace over panic. Every time you choose to keep living when it would be easier to quit, you become a living testimony of divine endurance. God's power shines brightest through those who refuse to give up, even when the night seems endless. You may not realize it, but your endurance is inspiring unseen life. There are people watching how you handle your trials, and through your perseverance, they will find hope for their own battles. God often uses your story to strengthen others. The pain you are carrying today could be the message that saves someone tomorrow. So when you keep standing, you are not only honoring God, you are helping others find their way back to faith. Never underestimate the impact of your persistence. It is part of a larger divine design. God's path is rarely the easiest, but it is always the surest. You may walk through deserts, but those deserts are leading to rivers. You may pass through valleys, but those valleys will lead you to higher mountains. You may cry now, but those tears are watering the soil of your destiny. God never forgets the tears that fall in silence. Each one is a seed of future joy. What you sow in sorrow, you will one day reap in strength. There will come a point when you stop asking God, when will this end? And start saying, God, thank you for what you're doing through this. That's when transformation begins. When your perspective shifts from frustration to faith, you align with divine flow. You start to see that even your delays, your disappointments, and your detours were carrying hidden blessings. God doesn't just work around your pain, He works through it. Sometimes you have to lose what is temporary to receive what is eternal. You have to release what you thought was everything so that God can give you what truly is. There's freedom in surrendering control, not because you are giving up, but because you are giving it over. Letting go is not weakness, it's an act of spiritual power. It's declaring that God knows better, that His wisdom surpasses your understanding. When you stop fighting against the season you are in and start flowing with God's timing, peace will flood your spirit. Because true peace is not found in perfect circumstances, it's found in divine trust. The storm outside cannot shake a heart that rests in God's will. And that's where real strength comes from. You can walk through chaos and still have calm inside you when you know who holds your destiny. God is telling you, not to give up. Because what you are facing right now is not the end. It's preparation for a new beginning. The pressure you feel is the sign that something is about to be born. Labor is painful, but it leads to life. The spiritual contractions you feel are proof that something greater is on the horizon. Keep pushing, keep believing, keep walking. You are closer than you think. Even when you have nothing left to give your trust to God. When you can no longer run, walk. When you can no longer walk, stand. And if all you can do is whisper, God, I still believe, that is enough. Because faith is not about never falling, it's about never staying down. God lifts those who refuse to surrender. The smallest act of faith can move the greatest mountain when placed in the hands of the Almighty. Do not define your future by your current situation. What looks like an ending to you is simply the middle of God's story. He is the master author, and his narratives always turn broken beginnings into triumphant endings. The scene you're living right now is not your final chapter. God is still writing. Every delay, every disappointment, every closed door, it's all part of the plot that will one day make perfect sense. There will come a time in your journey when the storm grows louder and the path ahead grows darker. It will feel as if the world has turned against you and your strength has run out. But in that very moment, when everything seems impossible, that is when you must remind your soul that God is not silent. He is strategizing. The silence of God is not the absence of His presence. It is the preparation for His power. When you hear nothing, when you feel nothing, when all you have left is faith that barely flickers, hold on. Because just when you think you reached your breaking point, that's when God reveals that He was holding you the entire time. You see, it is often in the deepest despair that the greatest faith is born. God refines your trust, not when everything is easy, but when everything is uncertain. When you cannot see your next step, when you cannot predict the outcome, when your heart trembles and your mind is weary, that is the sacred space where faith grows. God is not testing you to break you. He is training you to depend on Him completely. He is teaching your heart to see beyond logic, to walk beyond sight, and to trust beyond comfort. Because faith that has never been challenged is faith that has never been proven. When you face the unknown, remember this: the unknown to you is already known to God. The darkness that surrounds you is not darkness to Him. The confusion that clouds your mind is clear before His eyes. He sees the path from beginning to end, and nothing surprises Him. Every obstacle, every delay, every setback, He saw it before you ever got there, and He already built a way through it. You are not walking toward uncertainty. You are walking through a plan that God has already completed. You may not see the destination, but God has already prepared it. So why do we feel like giving up? Because we look at the size of the problem instead of the power of God. We measure our own strengths and forget the one who holds the universe. We think that if we cannot fix it, it cannot be fixed. But God is not limited by your ability. He is revealed through your surrender. When you stop trying to carry the burden alone and hand it over to Him, you make room for miracles. You create a space for divine intervention. God cannot fill what is already full of fear, but when you empty yourself of worry, He fills you with wisdom, courage, and peace. There will be times when you feel forgotten, but you are never unseen. God sees every effort you make in secret. Every sacrifice that no one applauds, every tear that no one wipes away. You may feel overlooked by people, but you are handpicked by God. His recognition is far more powerful than human praise. When God decides to elevate you, no one can stop it. When He opens a door, no one can close it. So don't be discouraged when the world ignores your efforts. Heaven is watching, and God rewards faithfulness in ways far greater than applause. Some of you have been waiting for years for healing, for clarity, for breakthrough, and you begin to wonder if God even remembers your prayers. But let me tell you this, no prayer is ever lost. When you speak to God, your words never disappear into the air. They are stored in the chambers of heaven. Every prayer you thought went unanswered is waiting for its appointed time. And when that time comes, everything will happen suddenly. What took years to pray for can manifest in moments when God says, now. Sometimes God delays to mature your heart, because what He wants to give you is not just a blessing, it's a responsibility. And responsibility requires strength. God will not give you something that you are not prepared to carry. So while you wait, He is shaping you, strengthening you, and teaching you how to handle what is coming. The waiting is not punishment, it's protection. If you saw what God was building, you'd understand why it's taking time. When you walk with God, you must learn that obedience is more powerful than understanding. There will be seasons where He asks you to move without knowing the destination. He will ask you to trust when logic tells you to quit. He will ask you to stay when every emotion in your body wants to run. And if you can obey without full clarity, that's when miracles begin to unfold. Because obedience is the key that unlocks divine favor. You may not understand where He's leading you, but when you follow His guidance, you look back and realize that every step, no matter how confusing, was perfectly aligned with your destiny. Never underestimate the power of consistency in faith. Some people want instant transformation, but God works through process. Faith is built like a muscle. It grows with repetition, with daily trust, with unwavering perseverance. Every time you choose to trust God, instead of panicking, you are training your spirit to become unbreakable. You are building a spiritual foundation that no storm can destroy. God doesn't want you to give up because there's something divine growing in you that can only come through endurance. The pressure you feel is not meant to crush you, it's meant to birth power. The hardship you're facing is not punishment, it's the path to purpose. The confusion you're battling is not chaos, it's the classroom of faith. God allows the storm because He knows you are strong enough to stand through it. You may not believe that, but He does. He placed the strength in you long before the battle began. You are not fighting for victory, you are fighting from victory. Because the outcome was already written in heaven before the battle ever started. There are moments when you will feel that everything is against you. People may doubt you. Plans may fail. Resources may run out. But even then, you are not alone. God's presence does not leave you because circumstances change. His presence is not conditional, it's eternal. He walks beside you through the fire and never lets the flames consume you. He walks with you through the flood and never lets the water drown you. He is not watching from a distance. He is standing within the storm with you. When you realize that, something shifts. You stop being afraid of what might happen and start trusting that whatever happens will be used by God for your good. Every detour is direction. Every loss is a lesson. Every trial is a teacher. Nothing that happens to you is wasted in the hands of God. He can take the most painful experience and turn it into the most powerful testimony. The place where you once cried will become the place where you will later stand in gratitude. The pain you once cursed will become the wisdom you one day thank Him for. Don't let temporary suffering convince you that permanent defeat is coming. Suffering is seasonal. Even the longest night eventually gives way to dawn. The laws of nature reflect the faithfulness of God. Darkness always yields to light. Cold winters always give way to spring. And your season of sorrow will not last forever. God has set an appointed time for your joy to return. But you must learn to praise God, even in the middle of your struggle. Praise is not just gratitude for what you have. It is a declaration of trust in what is yet to come. When you praise in pain, you are declaring that your faith is greater than your fear. Praise confuses despair, it silences doubt, and it draws divine power into your situation. Even when tears run down your face, lift to your heart and say, God, I still trust you. Those words carry weight in heaven. And when it feels like everything has been taken from you, remember this. No one can take what God has reserved for you. You may lose possessions. You may lose people. You may lose peace for a moment. But you can never lose God's purpose. What He has written for your life cannot be erased by anyone's opinion, rejection, or betrayal. You are walking through chapters that will soon make sense in the full story. God's wisdom often hides behind what feels like confusion. But confusion to you is clarity to Him. You see pieces, He sees the whole picture. You see delay, He sees divine order. You see loss, He sees rearrangement. Trust that His view is greater than yours. Because one day, when the pieces come together, you will see that the very things that tried to destroy you became the foundation of your destiny. So do not give up. Do not give in to despair. Do not surrender your peace to fear. Keep walking. Keep believing. Keep listening for that still, quiet voice that says, I am with you. Because even when it seems you are alone, you are surrounded by the presence of the Almighty. Every step you take in faith is seen, cherished, and strengthened by His unseen hand. And when the day comes that you finally stand in the place you once prayed for, you will realize that God was faithful all along. You will look back and understand that every tear watered your growth, every delay built to your patience, and every hardship shaped your heart into something powerful, something unshakable, something divine. Because in the end, it was never about how strong you were, it was about how deeply you trusted. The greatest victory is not in avoiding the struggle, but in trusting God through it. The greatest faith is not in escaping the fire, but in walking through it with the peace. The greatest miracle is not in never falling, but in always rising again with your heart anchored in God. So let this truth settle into your soul. You will make it. You will rise again. You will overcome. Because God is not done. He is still writing, still shaping, still leading you forward. What He began in you, He will bring to completion in His perfect time. So lift your eyes, steady your heart, and keep walking. The same God who carried you this far will carry you all the way.